industry for 25 years. Oh, good idea. So in the last 25 years, I've worked in industry. And so I started off on a help desk in the mid 1980s and worked my way around an IT department. So I have spent time on a help desk, then getting more technical over the years, spending a lot of time in tech support. I was a network engineer, database administrator. I've done a lot of software development, or not development. I'm not a programmer, but I've had a direct hand in designing new products and services that required custom code. So I worked directly with developers and wrote up technical security specifications. I got into project management. I was a director of IT, and then I finished my career as a vice president of IT, managing an entire department for quite a few years, hiring manager for many years, and a chief information security officer. So it was my job to protect the company from attacks, as well as to pass NIST audits, as well as PCI certification or certified audits as well, because we were in about 4 different industries. One of them was healthcare as well. So I had to make sure that our policies, everything what we were doing complied with the HIPAA regulations as well. All right, so there are 2, like I mentioned, excellent resources. I have the links in the slide deck, and these slide decks can be made available to you if you are at all interested in having them. But these 2 links, for those of you who are big picture thinkers and like to start there, that you don't get overwhelmed with a lot of information, these are the documents for you. And what they really do is they outline what cybersecurity is. And there were quite a few people that worked on these documents. Many people were involved. And so in the CSEC 2017, it isn't as named as I should say, marketing friendly, have you will. It sounds like it's purely academics or for academics, because it talks about being a cybersecurity curricula guidelines. But it is an excellent outline that takes the entire embodiment, the whole discipline, and it breaks down into 8 knowledge areas, which I will walk you through just to get a flavor for what are we talking about? What is cybersecurity? What's interesting is academia typically lags behind industry, only because industry is at the absolute forefront in many cases. And so the associations that are directly involved with industry, it is always good when an association comes out and says, we're going to definitively define whatever the discipline is. Cybersecurity, like I mentioned, is much newer than more established or disciplines such as math or computer science or even biology. Those disciplines have been around a long time, and there is a lot of agreement as to what constitutes those. But when you're getting into cybersecurity, there is still, like I mentioned, a lot of disagreement still between, but we do at least have a lot of collaboration between academia, industry, and government. That to me is the most important. And I credit CAE, the CAE community, for pulling a lot of that together. The Joint Task Force on Cybersecurity Education included the Association for Computing Machinery, the IEEE Computer Society, the Association for Information Systems also had a special interest group that participated, as well as the International Federation of Information Processing. And so there was definitely a global perspective in creating this outline for cybersecurity. The other cybersecurity body of knowledge came out of the University of Bristol. It is really an outstanding piece of work as well. They've categorized the knowledge areas in about 19 different knowledge areas, as opposed to, I'll call it the American version, has 8. And so here, let me just show you. Let me advance here. Wait. This is what the 19 knowledge areas in the CyBOK, or the Cybersecurity Body of Knowledge, that came out of Britain. It is really outstanding. Sometimes it's easier to look at a graphic. They've done their best putting these 19 in perspective, but I'm not going to walk you through 19. What I really wanted to do is show you actually what we'll start with the 8 bodies of knowledge. So that you can get a flavor for what is cybersecurity. But I do recommend you pulling down both of those PDFs. if you have time to read through them. So we're going to just walk you through the first one. And this just shows you, this graphic was created. I created it actually for one of our books. My wonderful co-authors, Dan Shoemaker and Ken Sigler. We've co-authored 6 now books on different flavors of cybersecurity. This one, we've tried to do our best taking this particular wonderful outline of cybersecurity topics. We couldn't really take a deep dive into really explaining what each one was, because then the book would have been probably a 5-volume set of thousands of pages. So it's more of a high-level overview of the entire body of knowledge. But I just wanted to point out here is that from a graphical standpoint, of the 8 knowledge areas, there are really about 5 technical ones. You've got your data, software, component, connection, and system security that are more technical in nature. And then you've got your, what I would call non-technical, your human security, which is relatively new. Years ago, there used to be 2 camps in cybersecurity. You had your technical camp, and then you had your non-technical camp. But I think the rise of insider threats, social engineering. I mean, now the human side, the non-technical side are easily becoming or almost overshadowing the hacking that's going on into the networks. Hackers can now get people's credentials just with a phone call in many cases. So it does tremendously matter. The other side of the equation are the society, the organizational security, and the human security. And really, I just tried to show you human and society might not overlap too much with the technical, but the organizational sure does. But at the end of the day, all 8 of them matter tremendously. So when you're talking about competencies and skill sets, employers are very much looking for competencies. They want to hire somebody, whether it's out of school or maybe you're still in the middle of a program, you're going through an internship. It's one thing to say, yeah, I was in a class, I had a class project, but that's all fine and good, and maybe was fine and good at a time. But I would argue that today, your time would be best served in building competencies. There are so many tools out there that you need to learn. What's very interesting in being a former hiring manager for many years is I used to absolutely love interviewing potential employees that were very passionate about some area of IT. I didn't expect employees to know everything there was about IT, because there are different personalities that go into different positions. For instance, the people that I would hire as programmers, they loved programming. They could stay in their office all day with the lights off, absolutely happy to program all day long, where I met many more people who said, oh no, that would be a hard no. Programming is not my thing. Their personalities were very, very different. So you've got people who go into database, they love the data and all defining them, making sure that the organization is defining all the attributes and designing it in such a way, and of course, optimizing it. It's not non-technical, but it is certainly requires a level of detail and appreciation for data that is unlike any other personality I've ever met. And then you have much less technical, you could say, where you've got people who you don't have to be technical to get into IT. We need business analysts, people who are very client-facing, articulate, who understand business rules, business requirements, because I came from industry where we wrote custom software. And as far as I'm concerned, our software could not possibly be good at all without the best possible way of getting those business requirements. If you've missed a business requirement, as far as I'm concerned, your project's a bit of a failure, because it's not going to work the way the client wants it to. And getting those requirements is not easy. I have worked with many clients. A lot of them will not even bring on their side of the table the right people to the conversation. They will forget. And then of course, once it's already almost into production, they're testing it. That's when they suddenly remember, oh yeah, I needed to say this. So it is not easy, and you need people who have that business savvy and are able to take those business requirements, write them up, and then make sure that a developer can use those. So with that said, I also highly recommend other skill sets and competencies such as conflict management. I highly recommend, if you have not taken a workshop on conflict management, or even just maybe a webinar, whatever it is, I recommend taking some webinar, let's say a couple of days or a week on conflict management is probably one of the best things you'll do. You're not only going to have conflict in the corporate ranks if you go, or the government or nonprofit. Nonprofit has its own ways of being that are very different than the corporate ranks in many aspects, but even in your personal life, your home life, and as we're seeing society, oh my, I've never seen so much conflict in my life as I get older, but that is an area that I would highly recommend, in addition to being resilient, have excellent critical thinking and reasoning skills. Teamwork is always important. Verbal and written communication is important. Attention to detail, I cannot overestimate. When it comes to cybersecurity work, your attention to detail is absolutely critical. And I say that from a digital forensics background. If you want your investigation to be presented in a court of law, believe me, a defense attorney is going to eat it and you alive if they can. And so your documentation better be absolutely stellar. And so I highly recommend that attention to detail, those, and the ability for you to be able to document well, not to mention a level of accountability. Whether you work in IT or even venture into cybersecurity, accountability is absolutely critical. You know, you've got to take ownership of your decisions, and we all make decisions all day long, but we also have to, we are held to a higher level of scrutiny. We need to pass background checks, which maybe a lot of people in the organization don't have to pass a background check, but when you're working in cyber and IT, you have to pass background checks. And believe me, it's much easier. Don't tell a lie. It's not worth lying. If you're going to break a rule, and you need to own that. You need to be able to explain that if somebody's going to challenge you on it. So that's really what accountability is taking ownership of your choices, which is, I think, very, very critical in life in general, let alone cybersecurity. All right, so let's talk about the different knowledge areas. We've got knowledge area number one is the data security topics. This area focuses on the protection of data at rest, during processing, as well as in transit. This also focuses on or requires the application of mathematical analytical algorithms. And so when you're making decisions, there are some hard decisions to make. If you happen to be a transaction-heavy organization, you got to make the decision. Do you encrypt that data or don't you? Some organizations have actually made a decision not to encrypt their transactional data because it does absolutely slow down. There's bandwidth requirements. It can interrupt productivity. And what ends up happening is, in some cases, you've got bandwidth issues, you've got degradation in the speed of people being able to be productive, is my point. Now, with that said, if you get hacked, well, then you increase the availability, or I should say you increase the opportunities for hackers. And there actually was a health system back in Georgia years ago that made that hard decision not to encrypt their transactional data. They did get hacked. Well, guess what? They're no longer in business. So that was a devastating attack for them. But anyway, these are the hard decisions you need to make. That falls under data security topics. And so the essentials in this area are really understanding basic cryptography concepts. I highly recommend understanding digital forensics, even though a lot of corporations will outsource the digital forensics. But if you work on the network, you do need to understand how to preserve evidence in the event you did get attacked and the decision was made prior that you want to prosecute the attacker. A lot of corporations won't prosecute attackers because they don't want their name on the front page of the news. So that's a decision, but it would be important for you to know that as you're working. If you have to preserve evidence of any kind, it is good to know how to do that. End-to-end secure communications is important to know here. Data integrity, authentication, as well as information storage security falls within this knowledge area. The second knowledge area is software security, and this knowledge area focuses on the development and use of software. I got to say that the security of a system, the data it stores and manages, really does depend in large part on the security of its software. It really depends on how well it was designed, implemented, tested, deployed, maintained. I do have a link up here in the OWASP Top 10 Web Application Security Risks. This is an outstanding organization. You can navigate. It's free. It stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. They do a wonderful job putting out this document. If you go into programming, if you are a software developer, this is a must read. As a matter of fact, if you're a project manager, if you're a business analyst, quite frankly, I think everybody in IT should read this document. It is extremely well written. This top 10, I think there's a new one out for 2001, a top 10 list. It's stated so well. It's not written in a cryptic. It really does a great job of explaining cross-site scripting errors, SQL injection. These are just basically sloppy programming errors that if a software application goes into production with these vulnerabilities, the whole organization is at risk. So it's very well worth knowing. So this area, the essentials are fundamentals. The fundamental design principles, least privilege, open design, abstraction, the security requirements and their role in the design of any software system, implementation issues, there's static and dynamic testing, configuring, patching is very important. There's a whole thing on patch management. And ethics, there's also ethical issues, especially in the development testing and vulnerability disclosure. So that's kind of that whole area. The next one's component security, and this area focuses on the design, the procurement, testing, analysis, and the maintenance of components that are actually integrated into larger systems. There are no more, there are so much interoperability requirements between systems. Many systems are basically designed as larger, more complex systems that if you whittle it down, they are multi-module systems. And so the security of the system depends in part on the security of its components, and the essential here are the vulnerabilities of the system components, understanding how to maybe use some pen testing tools to find those vulnerabilities. There are secure component design principles that you should be aware of, supply chain management security. The weakest link in a supply chain is the one that does not have security in place, or that's typically what hackers will go for. And then you can, of course, infect the whole supply chain. So you need to also understand security testing and reverse engineering. So the next up is the connection security. This knowledge area focuses on the security of the connections between the components. And it includes both, it's the physical, it's not only the logical connections, but the physical connections. And it's critical that every cybersecurity professional have a basic knowledge of digital communications and networking. Digital communications and networking really are very, very foundational. So that's why it's important the connections and the components interact. And so the essentials in this area are the systems architecture, the models that are used, the standards that are used when designing the infrastructure or the architecture. There's physical component interfaces to be aware of. There's software component interfaces, connection attacks, there's transmission attacks, and those are the essentials for this area. So the next one, area number 5, is system security, and this focuses on the security aspects that are composed of components, connections, as well as the use of software. So it's those three combined, and understanding how those interact with each other is absolutely critical. You're dealing with a system that is kind of a complete unit in and of itself with these three components. And it really does require a holistic view of the system. So you need to understand a holistic approach when it comes to cybersecurity. You really should understand policies, the security policies. Usually corporation has a security plan. Hopefully everybody has access to that and are aware of the policies that are referenced in there, as opposed to just the few policies that you might sign, which would be let's say an acceptable use policy or a password policy. Some organizations have well over 100 policies. Not that I am suggesting you read those all, but it's good to be familiar with that a corporation doesn't have 2 or 3 policies that may HR might provide for you. They have quite a few, and it's important that they be implemented and always, or I should say periodically, reviewed. So as a holistic approach, you want to make sure that you've got a good security policy in place. This would include authentication, policies, access control, continuous monitoring is absolutely critical. It is, I realize, not a very glamorous job, but I think it's a very critical job in cybersecurity. There are excellent SIEM systems that you can funnel these log files into in order to be able to parse out that information. If a company is not doing continuous monitoring, they are really not, they're not managing their network. So you also want this knowledge area also focuses on recovery, testing, and documentation. And I know documentation is also an area that is not enjoyable. A lot of IT people are known for not being particularly good documenters, but documentation is absolutely critical when it comes to this area, especially the policies. All right, knowledge area number 6 is human security, that actually focuses on not just identity, but this is really protecting individuals' data, their privacy in the context of organizations and personal life. So, you know, there's always a trade-off between availability of data and privacy. You know, the more, or I should say, the less or the more secure it is, maybe it's less available. Yeah, you might have privacy in that regard, but if you cannot get to the systems you need to get to be productive, you know, there's always, whenever you have to lessen security, maybe for availability, of course, there's going to be opportunities for privacy to be breached. And so, you know, people spend untold hours. I feel so badly for people who have had their identity stolen. It is absolutely devastating. Our law enforcement is really still grappling with how to manage identity stealing. But it is amazing as well when people get on Facebook and they answer those cute little, you know, how many years have you been married? Do you have any tattoos? You know, all those questionnaires. Well, I know you're all familiar with those. Don't fill them out. They are purposefully designed. And if I can read all of your answers, more than likely I can hack into your email because you've probably used something in there for a password. And that is very common. That's why these things are, and as fun as they are to give all your data out there for your friends to get to know you better. You know, I've been friends with some of my classmates going all the way back to 1970. I know them enough. I don't know. I need to know how many piercings and tattoos. I'm good. But my more concern is with their cybersecurity. So don't fill those out. That can be absolutely devastating. So the essentials in this area are identity management, social engineering, which is actually overtaking all of the technical attacks. I think they're neck and neck. If not, I would argue that the social engineering, those ransomware techniques. Oh, I just read something today, which I thought was actually quite wow. I'm sure you've all heard of one-click attacks. That's when you click on an email that are becoming really slick. Those emails are looking so real, especially, and they are irresistible. If your charge card, if somebody's telling you you've got an invoice and your charge card's going to be re-upped, I get those all the time. They look kind of, oh, wait a minute. Don't click. That's a beautiful one click. Well, guess what? In security or secure world, secure week, I just read there is such a thing called zero-click malware. Zero-click. Has anybody heard of that? Give me a show of hands. People heard of zero. All right. So it's not new. All right. So here I'm thinking, oh my goodness, can you imagine zero-click technology? That just made our jobs even tougher. So keep that in mind. Needless to say, it's an issue, and that's the human issue. They are getting really, really clever. So the essentials there are in this, you know, you need awareness, you need understanding, you need to understand something about social behavior, privacy. They're directly related. Security, personal data privacy and security fall within this as well. All right, org 7, I'll speed it up. I realize I'm over time or getting there. All right, so org security. This area is focusing on threats, managing risk to support the mission. You've got large corporations, and many times you've got lots of responsibility to meet the needs of many different constituents. Some of them conflict with each other. And so as an organization, you need to know the security laws, state, not only federal, state, local laws. They do change for jurisdictions. You need to know about every regulation or whatever industry you're in. Some corporations are in 5 different industries. You need to know the regulations that fit for every single one of those, the standards within the, basically the organization meets. There are excellent frameworks out there. So you need to know risk management, and that's a whole topic in and of itself. Governance, policy, laws, ethics, compliance fall into this, strategy and planning as well. And then the last one is societal security, although I got a couple more tools after this, hang on tight. Societal security, this actually focuses on the aspects of cyber that impact society. That is all of us. We've got cyber crimes, cyber investigations, laws, ethics, policy, privacy, and of course, their relationship to one another. Our law enforcement agencies nationwide are absolutely grappling with how do we handle cybercrime. Many jurisdictions don't have the funding to handle the cyber side of traditional law enforcement. So they have to kick it up to a state level. Some of the states, they are so overwhelmed in dealing with cybercrime that there's a lot of people that are just not getting their needs met on a cybercrime or a cyber investigation standpoint. So with that said, there's excellent job opportunities. So the essentials in this area are cyber crime, cyber ethics, cyber policy, and privacy. All right, so this is a outstanding, it's called the Cybersecurity Heat and Demand Supply Map. If you're wondering what areas in the nation have open positions, look at all these. Now, this is a screenshot. I highly recommend for you to click on this live. The numbers are changing. I forgot how old, this is a snapshot when I created the PowerPoint slide deck, but I highly recommend you go out here. You can actually see on a national level the total cybersecurity job openings, the supply of workers. I'll tell you, I will argue that they're probably very low in every single one of them. You can see the geographic concentration. What's very important are these job titles. Take a look at these job titles. Go into Indeed.com, pull down the job descriptions. If you're wondering if you need certifications, that's a whole nother thing we'll talk about. I'm pretty sure I have it in the slide deck. So, so you can see actually here what's really helpful, that if you drill down, you can take a look. If you take a look, there is what's really cool is this career pathway in this wonderful website. You can take a look and you can see the feeder roles and how you've got entry level, mid-level, advanced level. What you can click on those and you can find the top skills requested nationwide. You can drill down to maybe your area. Maybe you're in Detroit, maybe you're in wonderful sunny California or Florida. So wherever you land in the nation, you've got some, this is a really great resource. And what's also important here, it also tells you these top certifications requested. Now, I always get questions on what certifications, and as you can see, this is, I realize, a super busy slide. This is available, again, free online. This is created by CompTIA as a huge poster. But if you want to see just a snapshot of this, the IT certification roadmap. Thank you so much, Bradley, for putting that in there, or whoever put that in there. The link in the chat, by the way. You can click on that link and it'll take you to this particular chart. What I love about this chart is it's actually vendor agnostic. It includes everyone that they can think up. There's beginner or novice, there's intermediate, there's advanced and expert, and it breaks it down between being in just information security, or if you want to specialize in network or cloud technologies. You can see in the purple there, the hardware, services, and infrastructure. There are just some people very gifted at that. There's management. Some of you may want to aspire to management, or you're already in management. You might want to consider an ISACA, or an IDLE expert. There's all different kinds of excellent certifications. There's storage, web, mobile, software development, trading, and the like. What I like about this is really on the flip side of this particular poster, and this actually breaks it down by vendor. This is what's really important, because you might have heard of one or two. It's really who gets the most buzz, who pays the most for advertising. But you can see here, you've got everybody here just about. I like this. EC Council, the GIAC, Cisco, CompTIA, TIA, this is really helpful. If you're looking to either help other individuals, help family members, whatever you want, you can actually take a look at this, and it'll give you an idea of the beginning, novice, intermediate, advanced, and give you an idea of maybe I want to pursue this. I would combine this with taking a look at the job postings in Indeed.com. All right, a next wonderful resource is the NICE Cybersecurity Workforce Framework. This is a framework that actually puts these into context. There's 52 work roles divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories. And so what's excellent about this particular resource is you can drill down. Let's say you want to pick a cyber defense analyst. And if you're interested in that particular work role, you can click on the tasks you would need to know, the skills, the abilities. Dr. Vinnie Nestler and Dr. Zoe Fowler out of Norwich are working on the competencies related to this. So in conjunction with this workforce framework, they are also developing an excellent model for developing competencies, it's critical. So yes, you need knowledge. Yes, you need skills. Yes, you need abilities. Abilities could also translate into competencies. I highly recommend it. Again, like I said, cybersecurity is just one of those fields that you can be exposed to all this stuff, but it's up to you to take the time, build out a home, like I got in the background. This is my home lab. It's off now, so it doesn't suck up the bandwidth, but I recommend build out a home lab. There's excellent books available to do that. Lots of different books available. All right. Lastly, cyber competitions. For those of you who are young and don't have work experience, I would argue that cyber competitions is the next best thing for in lieu of work experience. The NCL National Cyber League has just kicked off now. It's only $35 per participant. I'm going to kick this over to Bradley. I know you've got some excellent comments to make about NCL. Go, Bradley.
Definitely. So everything that Anne pretty much mentioned, it's not just for the young. I'm not young, clearly. So with that being said, it's great if you're just trying to learn new skills. It's a very low bar to entry. It's, as she mentioned, $35. And that's for the cyber competition itself, which is more than just a competition. It does actually last just over the weekend, but there's so much that leads up prior to that. If you're competitive though, and you like gamifying anything, this is a great way for you to be able to test some of the skills you know. And then before that even happens, there's a gymnasium that they have to give you an idea of, all right, this is what we are expecting. These are the types of challenges you're going to expect over the weekend. So that way you can say, oh, wow, I'm a little rusty with forensics, but I'm great at log analysis. Maybe I should focus more of my time to forensics, and so on and so forth. And on top of that gymnasium, even before you pay that $35, NCL Skyline is very good about hosting a live, information session. It's almost weekly, sometimes it's twice a week, that show you these different skills that they will be having in that cyber competition. If you do not get a chance to see it, because I know you're all students, you're all in class, so there's most likely going to be a presentation that you can't attend because you're in school, they upload to YouTube for free. So even before you pay that $35, you can use NCL Skyline to start learning some of these skills at no cost, and then take your resources from there. The only thing I'm going to caution, do not Google just NCL unless you want to go on Norwegian Cruise Line, because that will be the first hit. So be sure to put NCL Cyber Skyline. That'll be what gets you actually over to there. And I actually see a lot of people similar praises to it. So yeah, cool. No experience is required. Have fun. I was not in last place, literally just registering and doing a tutorial gets you some points, and not everyone does that. So little ego boost, enjoy it. Yeah. But I cannot speak highly enough of NCL.
I agree. And there's also, and NCL's not the only one. There's the CCDC there listed with the link. There's the NSA Codebreaker Challenge. Cyber Patriot is for K through 12. If you've got some younger siblings or people that you know, that is an excellent way to introduce cyber to the younger folk. Because quite frankly, I keep telling everybody that'll listen to me, Some people are destroying their careers before they even graduate from high school because of what they're posting on social media. We cannot be too diligent in telling these young kids to be very, very careful what they're posting. Cyber Patriot is a great program, and there is the Nice Challenge web portal. This is an outstanding resource. It is open to CAE schools that they need to give you access. You need to have a school email, but this is a web portal that has over 100 real world challenges, and they would be things, they're like puzzles you need to solve, and they're real world. They're really well written. They're very, very well designed, and they're designed to make people think critically. They are going to definitely challenge you outside the box. They really, if you don't have any tech support skills, it's a little frustrating at first because you're going to be stumped, but that's really another great way to learn tech support skills in the Nice Challenge web portal. All right, let me just advance my last slide. That's pretty much all the material I have for today. Again, my name's Kohnke. That's my contact info if you've got questions. Otherwise, if you belong to a CAE community, there's wonderful people in this community that'll help you. So thanks for attending. I hope this was helpful.
So, and we do have one question that popped in, and I tried my best to take care of it in the direct chat, but just in case you want to elaborate on it, someone actually had a question about cloud computing and where that falls under. That was during the knowledge area.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's an excellent one. All right, so let me see if I can go back to my slides. Oh, I seem to have, all right. Hang on here. All right, just a second off the top of my head. I've got too much going on here. Where's the cloud? There is cloud, because it's relatively new. Where did they put that? I would think system security, because now you've got this holistic. So let's just peruse these. My apologies for not knowing off the top of my head, because some people categorize these in different areas. So for instance, I would think that that would fall under components, that you could argue, or system, here, software. Well, actually, you could argue data. It should be under data, because you've got data in the cloud. I wonder if it's, oh, did anybody, that's an excellent question. Distributed systems architecture, it could fall under there. I thought I saw it in here. All right, sorry, it's interesting. It's not even there. That's good on whoever asked that question. Outstanding. Because that is a major issue. There are companies actually that have stored on the cloud. Some cloud providers are more secure than others. There are cases where companies have decided to pull their data out of the cloud. And you could argue, I could argue both ways for putting it out there versus not putting it out there. There's a lot of conveniences, but the one big thing is that companies need to remember they are responsible for their own data, which makes it particularly tricky because an organization does not own the cloud infrastructure. In many cases, I don't even know if companies remember to ask for audit ability. There's some cloud providers that won't even let you audit them. And I think that's a very dicey situation and something that you need to take into consideration. I wouldn't go with a vendor that would not allow an audit of their infrastructure, because at the end of the day, you own your data. You're responsible for any breaches of the PII, for instance, especially if it's healthcare data. So it's fraught with complexity. But anyway, that's an excellent question, and I'm sorry, I don't even have a good answer for you.
No worries. Last question is, do you have any recommendations for those who are either about to graduate or recent graduates to find a job? But before you answer, this is a great place, the Virtual Career Fair. Great opportunity for startup.
This is the opportunity. You need to get into, first of all, make sure your resume is well written. I've seen some resumes that are just like, oh, come on. Don't you have a resource somewhere? Somebody's got to love you. You've got to get that resume out. And again, if somebody, let's tell you, I got to tell you, cybersecurity professionals are in such need, but yet on the other side, the responsibility is very, very high to hire the right people. And it's an investment because there is a huge learning curve. So what I would highly recommend to you, get your resume in order, build a home lab so you know what you're talking about, because there is nothing better than experience. If you can't get to these competitions, get some excellent books and build a home lab. And then, of course, when you get your resume out there, you could do recruiters locally. There's a lot of recruiting companies. I get emails all the time. Do you know somebody who would fill this job? LinkedIn. LinkedIn's another area. There's a lot of employers that scour LinkedIn. So consider updating. Don't put your home address or anything like that on LinkedIn, but certainly put that you're looking for a position. You can also look for the recruiters and go after them on LinkedIn. A lot of employers are using LinkedIn these days. And you can actually set up searches in there so that the jobs that are posted out there come to you, or you can get a summary of them. So not only these career fairs are critical, LinkedIn's critical, your resume is critical, and above and beyond your skills, your capabilities. Because if you're in a job interview, they're going to be drilling you. Because cybersecurity isn't just your ho-hum run-of-the-mill job. This is an important job. You would have access to resources that nobody else in the company has. So you have to build trust. You have to come across as competent and trustworthy. And don't lie on your resume. I got to tell you, some people fabricate. Lying seems to be a national thing these days. But let me tell you, when it comes to cybersecurity, lying you will destroy your career. You will absolutely destroy it easily. So that's absolutely critical. So you need to make sure that your digital footprint makes sense. You can't say something, you've got to be consistent. You have to be consistent. Make sure that you're not opting yourself out of jobs, because when somebody gets to your Facebook page, it looks like a train wreck, for lack of a better way to put it. Make sure that it's all of you. And nowadays, with all sorts of social media, there's no such thing as privacy. Absolutely zero. You cannot say, well, they should only be looking at my LinkedIn and they should only be looking at my professional. They're going to be looking at everything they can find on you. So take a look at what your reputation looks like online. That is absolutely critical. You can destroy your career before it even starts. That's my 2 cents.
All right. And then we're actually getting quite a few more questions, and I don't know how much time we have. I am compiling them as they come in. Do you feel better to just get those?
Fire away. Go ahead. Fire away.
Oh,
right
okay.
now.
We're fine with that one.
I got a little bit of time.
So
go ahead.
The one that I keep seeing pop up, we have students who have AAS in cybersecurity and certifications and do not require, and do you know of any positions that would be looking for those types of degrees and not necessarily full bachelors? And my 2 cents on that one is just from what I've seen from employers, they aren't necessarily looking for degrees. They're looking for skill sets, projects, and applicable skills that you can demonstrate to them. But that being said, and what are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, now being in academia now, and I've been working so much doing research, and I just got our school redesignated. That took hundreds of hours. I have not been able to spend time with employers, so I cannot tell you who's hiring, but that's the purpose of today's wonderful career fair. As far as if you're looking for corporations, I would caution you though, if you opt out of getting at least a bachelor's degree, and whether this is fair or not, I do know that there are many employer websites that they have you upload your resume and credentials, and they will automatically, the way they're configured, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you're not even considered for the position. And I think that is something that is very unfortunate. So I would not, unfortunately, we live in a day and age that a bachelor's degree is important. I know associate's degrees are very fine. And just like Bradley said, it's really about your capabilities and your competencies. But if you can't even get in front of a hiring manager because their software system already just deleted you, you're not going to get very far, unfortunately. I don't agree with that, but that's what a lot of corporations sites are doing.
And then we had another question from someone else who is asking, they're just starting their journey in Scholastic adventures in cybersecurity, and where you think they should start looking out, maybe with some assessment exams or things like that. For you, just as a reminder to everyone in the room today, this presentation is going to be sent out to everyone and has a lot of great resources in our PowerPoint that show multiple different pathways that you can start looking at the end goal where they all end up. So start looking at those careers and brief descriptions, and then start to align your academic career path down one of those paths. But start looking at what's out there. But Anne, what's your advice for someone who's starting out as a freshman in cybersecurity?
If you are just starting out, I think one of the best things you can do is learn all these different areas, try them on, and make special note of what does not fit. If this doesn't fall into your gifts, if it doesn't really make you stay up at night because you want to solve a problem, don't pursue it. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself is pursue an area that you really like, that you find out what you're passionate about. And the only way to do that is try it on, get into digital forensics, pursue the area. There's tons of excellent resources online. You can watch videos to get a feel for, like YouTube. I love the people that are so generous in sharing their knowledge, and they post things on YouTube. I mean, God bless those people. That's wonderful. Take a look at those areas, dig deep, build, like I said, build a home lab, see what you're good at. Let's say you learn Linux. I mean, Linux is a requirement. It's an operating system that a lot of people just don't even know. But if you don't know something, you don't know whether you're good at it. And that will drive, I want to say, what should be driving your career is what you're naturally good at, what really interests you. And the only way to do that is to literally take these areas and pursue each one, take a look at them. Like, here's an example. I love data. I love database design and administration. Not everybody does. I've had some people take my class and they've said, oh, I had to take your class because it was a core requirement, but guess what? I hated your class. You know why? Because I just hate database. I now know what field I'm not going to go in. I thought, good, that's excellent. You're starting off right. Yep. Sorry you hated my class, but you know what? Cross that off the list of career choices. You've just narrowed it down.
Definitely. As someone who just recently graduated, I cannot agree with that more. I'm definitely more of the people side of it, the project management side of it. That's all things I can very much identify with. I'm not saying I would go up to a teacher and tell them I hate their class, or the subject matter. That's very bold of that student.
That's okay. I don't mind.
But no, the honesty is good, because that's how you'll find out, okay, database might not be where you're into, but open resource data collecting, maybe that's what you're more into, because I see Facebook and social media keep popping up on there. Open source intelligence is a great field for those of you who might be doing that. Yes. For fun. So yeah. Sorry, there is a lot that y'all are just popping in here at the very end. And I want to say thank you to everyone in chat. It looks like we have some experienced people who have been on USA Jobs, Indeed, LinkedIn. All those places are giving great helpful advice as well too. Offering things like Hack the Box and SANS for different skills and websites they can explore. But yeah, the only other thing I want to bring up is I see one question that keeps popping up, and it's a lot about clearances. Federal jobs that have clearances, and if you're aware of any positions that are available that do not require clearances. I'm going to say you can definitely find jobs that don't. They're smaller, but most of them need a clearance of some form. It's just going to be a lot of research. Oh, there. Practice your open source intelligence that way. Start looking through those websites to find ones who do not require clearance.
It does take
most
research.
The federal government will.
You're absolutely right, Bradley. You're right. Okay, so when it comes to security clearances, it's a government thing. You don't need a security clearance in academia or industry unless you're working in industry on a project that is driven by and collaborating with a government agency. So we have 18 intelligence agencies in the United States, and they're the ones who drive the jobs, the job openings, as well as what security clearances are required for each job. So it really is dependent. What I do recommend, though, if you are wanting to get a position in the government, like even an internship job, I was just talking to somebody the other day that was recommending if you know that the internship is going to be in the summer, you're going to want to start the application process for the clearance well in advance. It takes months. It's a slow moving thing. So those agencies will drive that. Hopefully that's helpful.
I actually think that's great. We're currently in September. So for some of you who are looking to get internships for somewhere who does require a top secret, say it's NSA, CIA, FBI, one of those internships, start now, like go apply now. Even if you're just like in your first couple of weeks of classes, that TS will probably take this entire first year, and they prioritize students to try and get you through other than normal people who are looking for a full career. So if you have any desire to work at those, start it now, get that application in, because it will take this whole time.
Right, right. So this is a perfect comment. A private sector company will sponsor your clearance if they have a contract with a government agency. So usually the contracts are between corporations or private entities and the government, and they of course need employees. So you would either be employed on the private side, the industry side, or if you're working directly for the government. Either way, those security clearances would be provided by the respective organization. Hope that makes sense.
And then, oh no, definitely, at least on my side. So we are also getting a question who are asking for people looking for just general information, because I know this is the overarching subject matter of today's presentation was cybersecurity is a lot, it's vast. Where do I start if I don't know where to start? Anne has posted a lot of different great resources to start pursuing, because it is vast, it's huge, and it's overwhelming. And just to dispel anyone of thinking that they can learn it all, good luck. I think it's too big for anyone to be able to. Yeah. So start looking through all the options and what's it called? And gifts that Anne was able to give with today's links. This will also be again sent out later today, but start looking at those. That's the best thing I can recommend to any of you who are overwhelmed or feeling overwhelmed that there's so much to look into. Just break it up, roll by roll by roll, and then go from there and see what you like out of all those different areas of interest. Anne posted several knowledge areas. Start reviewing those. Those are top level understandings of those different knowledge areas. If you see one there, like maybe the organizational structure, maybe you're really into policy, maybe you're really into analytics, cool. Take that because it's interesting to you now, pursue it, and see if there's anything that you actually like out of it. That would be what I did, because it is so big and it is overwhelming. I came with a sociology background, so way over there, not affiliated when I first got into it. But then you later on find, oh, there are skills that I can apply to this. It's not all technical, like Anne said earlier. Right. Would you agree with that, Anne? If someone's feeling overwhelmed and doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, I mean, start with the links in the slide deck and pursue it. I mean, the government, Google is your friend. Google the 18 intelligence agencies. Get on those sites. I would start with 3. The National Security Agency. Take a look at that website and what they have posted on there. I would look at the Department of Homeland Security, and I would look at the Department of Defense, the DoD. Those 3. Those would be my top 3 I'd go after. If I were younger, I'm way too old, but I'd love to work for the National Security Agency. So now I just consult with them. But there's some great people, wonderful people in these agencies, and don't hesitate to reach out and call or email or pursue if they've got, you just don't know. You never know where you're going to just keep digging. It's really about research, and it's very analogous to cybersecurity. It's like an investigation. If you want to catch a hacker, you investigate, you scan the network, you find out, do I have the worst thing that could ever happen, in my view, is a hacker's been sitting on your network for 6 months and you don't even know it. Mm-hmm. Oh, but you need pursue it. Look, dig, you'll find.
And then this is just the last little thing from me, unless there's other questions, but I just want to put this out here that I wish someone would have told me when I was starting out as a student, since there are so many freshmen in here. If you are feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome, that is okay. It never goes away, it gets smaller. The best thing you can do is to just go ahead and pursue those skills and those talents that you believe you already have, and then you strengthen them, because that is the best way to diminish that imposter syndrome. You can accomplish a lot more than you think you can, especially if you're coming in here going, oh, I don't know, math is hard. I don't know how I can help in cyber, because that was me. There's an avenue, there's a path for you. Everyone has their own particular skill set.
That's right.
Because of how great and how vast cyber is. So if you have that imposter syndrome, you are not alone. There's Michael Jackson, it's fine. But everyone has it. And it's okay to have it.
Right. I would also inject, no, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I would actually also inject, don't be too proud to admit you just don't know something. I'm not embarrassed at all that I can't answer every single question, because I can't. But you know what? I'd like to know too. So I have kind of like, oh, I'm going to write that down and I'm going to learn. There's so much to know. Don't be embarrassed. Don't just kick the pride, leave the pride out, kick it out completely. Don't have, if you don't know, you don't know, and that's perfectly okay. Just keep learning. Keep learning. I have my student hat on most of the time. I've got my, just as much, I should say, as anything else. So never stop learning, never stop being a student.
All right. And then with that, we are at the top of the hour. And I think we're good. We've got a lot of questions. Everyone's connecting. We have a lot of the job fair still left to go. But if you do want to reach out, Anne did give out her email address. So if you have a pertinent question you don't think was asked, Anne, is okay if that's shared?
It's okay. Just know that it might take me a while to get back to you. I am teaching 4 classes. I'm administering a grant. I've got also a ton of service I do. If there's a delay, just hold tight. I'll get to it eventually.
Perfect. Cool. It's in the chat. Again, this will all be shared out later, including the slide deck, including the recording of the presentation. Thank you, Anne, for your time and being able to walk everyone through cybersecurity, because it is a very scary wooded area. And give us a little bit of light to everyone who attended today. We had over 360 people watching and contributing to today's presentation.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to everybody who's written in the chat, helpful. Again, I just so appreciate everybody being so gracious and sharing their knowledge. Thank you. I'm grateful for everybody. Good luck. Fantastic. I want to see everybody in the field working.